So if you subscribe to this channel, you obviously like Jeeps and wheeling. But we've got a special treat for you today. We figured if you like Jeeps and wheeling, you like any kind of cars. So we're here with Jack, and he's going to walk us around a couple of his really cool cars. Jack, tell us a little bit about this Camaro here.
This is a 1967 Camaro, which is first-year Camaro that I bought in Naples, Florida in 1978 when I first moved to Florida. From the factory, it came with an inline six-cylinder, 250 cubic inch, with a two-speed power glide, AM radio, and a heater, and that's it. No other options, no power. That's been my daily driver for those 4 years, from 78 to 82. I drove it up to Illinois to my parents' house, and then over to Joplin, Missouri, where my brother lives. I stayed up there for a couple of years. Again, it was my daily driver through the sun, sleet, snow. And I drove it back down to Naples. I stayed there for a year. Came across Alligator Alley and moved to Davie, Florida. I lived there for approximately 10 years. And I was driving it on the street and what have you. And then in 1987, I found a 1963 dual quad 409, minus the carburetors and intake manifold. And I purchased that. And in a little bit of time after that, I went ahead and installed it in this car here, behind a TCI 350 transmission. I also had put a 67 Chevelle 12 bolt with 411 gears. It was a positive traction unit. And I was driving it on the street. Not an everyday driver, but on the weekends, what have you. And then I bought another car, a Buick Regal, and that was my daily driver. And then I didn't drive it for a while. And then I moved up to Ocala. I trailered it up to Ocala. Trailered it over to Illinois, stayed up there for a couple of years, and I came back down here, and it's had a 283 bore and stroke to a 309 cubic inch in it. And then in 2009, I met up with John Lowers in Lakeland, and because I grew up with the gasser area in the 60s and 50s, I wanted to make a gasser out of it. And the reason they call it a gasser is, I believe, is because they had a gas class that used regular gas, ethyl, or maybe a race gas. It didn't use nitromethane or alcohol. And they would put a straight axle on it for weight transfer. And this is a Speedway axle kit that I bought from Speedway. And John and his nephew did the fabrication, and his nephew did the welding. And it has a 383 stroker in it with two 4 barrels, two 400 CFM Edelbrock carburetors. It has a comp cam, what they call a big mother thumper cam, which is known as, they brought that in to kind of replicate the 60 sound of the muscle car. I have a Richmond T10 4-speed connected to a 9-inch Curry with it's a 67 Chevelle 12 bolt with a 411 positive traction rear end in it. And John Lowers also built the roll bar for it. And he did the tin work for it inside. It doesn't have a back seat to it. And I drive it on the street. It's tagged and titled to drive on the street. So it has a tilt front end on it too. I'll tilt it for body. This paint job is what they call dip your car. If I wanted to, I could start peeling this paint job off and change it to a different color. But I did this in my driveway even before I had the garage.
Oh, that's cool. Let's
see
what you got under the
hood. Okay.
Okay, we gotta get you all mic'd up again. Okay. Well, that Camaro was cool, and now we're gonna move on to the Malibu. Tell us a little bit about this one, Jack.
This is my 1970 Chevelle Malibu that I bought down in Davie, Fort Lauderdale. I've probably had this for like 35 years. From the factory, it came with a 307 two-barrel with the Power Glide. When I bought it from a friend of mine, it had the same 307 in it, but it had somebody had installed a 350 TH350 transmission. It had, at the time, it had a black vinyl interior and a bench seat. And again, that was my daily driver down there. And after a while, when I went up to Illinois with it, I drove it up to Illinois. At a car show, I found a guy that had some bucket seats. I believe they're out of a Camaro. They were vinyl also. I installed them up there in Illinois. Drove the car back down here to Florida, to Davie. And in the meantime, since I lived here in Plant City, I had a guy, an upholsterer. He reupholstered it in a saddle color, and it's like a tweed. It's a little bit, definitely a little bit cooler than the black vinyl. The car did have air conditioning on it, but again, when I was down in Fort Lauderdale, I didn't bother to have the Freon change over to whatever they were R20, whatever it is. And so in the meantime, I've had it painted, and I changed the interior to a saddle color. And I went from an automatic to it has a Muncie 4-speed in it. And it's my backup car in case my 98 Chevy Lumina goes down. It has a 350 motor. And it has a hydraulic thumper cam in it, and just a small quadrajet carburetor on it, and nothing erratical, but it has that thumper sound to it. And something about this car originally came from the factory, I believe, with a vinyl top in it. But this was put on. This is bed liner.
Oh, cool. And
it doesn't have the two stripes going on one on each side. But I elected a guy that painted my Lumina had suggested about doing it, and I went ahead and had him paint like a metallic silver to kind of replicate cover up the pitted chrome. And so it's been a good car for all these years now. It's not a show car as far as finish, but I'm satisfied with it.
It's nice. I like it.
And it also, like I said, it also has a 4-speed in it. So this is my 1960 Chevy Impala that I bought in 2015. I bought this to replicate, it was advertised on eBay, and I bought this to replicate my first 1960 Chevy I had in 1965 when I graduated from high school. It's a former race car, and it was built by two brothers up in Chicago area, and they raced it with a 348 high performance engine in it, and they raced it in the Gary, Indiana. I think it was US 30 dragway, and also in Illinois. Evidently back in the 60s, they wasn't required to have a roll bar, because the car came down to me, it was definitely a basket case. Supposedly that the guy that I bought it from, his friend had bought it from the two brothers, and he was in the process of taking all the interior floor pans out and wanting to build a roll cage for it, but that never happened. So it's been sitting idle for the past 40 or so plus years, outside or in a garage in northern Illinois, almost to the Wisconsin border. So when it was delivered to me, none of the front end was installed. The front fenders was inside the car, sitting on the X-frame in the trunk. It came with the straight axle. And I've got a fiberglass front hood and a fiberglass deck lid. And my friend John Lowers and his nephew Charlie did the fabrication and the steel work on it. John wanted to reinforce the body, and so it has a 63. Has that same 1963 409 that I mentioned that I had installed in my Camaro, but this has been freshly rebuilt. Has two 4 barrels on it, 500 CFM Edelbrock carbs on it, and it has also another Mother Thumper cam in it for that 60 sound. It has a Richmond T10 4-speed connected to a Curry 9-inch with 456 gears. And again, I wanted to replicate because I had 456 gears in my first 1960. It's a positive traction unit, and I haven't had it on the drag strip yet. So, and it's again,
You'll
it's.
have to let me know when you get it on the drag strip. I will come and video that.
Okay, yes. And again, it's titled and licensed for the street. It has Lexan windows for the side windows. They don't roll down; they're permanent. It has a regular tinted glass for the rear, and this is the same tinted glass in the front when it came down from Illinois. And again, also John Lowers did the tin work inside.
Look at that powder coat.
And the powder coating was done by Bonnie Brower. Bonnie Brock. She powder coated over a dozen pieces for me. The intake manifold,
I failed to mention Jack works for me, so it's pretty cool. It's funny, we met because I powder coated this stuff for his car. So when I needed someone to work for me, Jack was all over it. All right, so what is this? This is not this car, correct? Okay.
This is my first 1960 Chevy Impala that I had out of high school in 1965.
So you were doing this one to kind of replicate that.
Yes.
I think you did a pretty good job.
Well, thank you. Of course, I have to credit the man that did the body work. He put the quarter panels on, and I wanted it painted the same color as what this was.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
You did have the Camaro on the drag strip?
I took the Camaro up to Orlando last year for it was a session called Riot 3, and it turned 12.995 at 106 miles an hour. Ooh. And that was only about the second time, probably in 40 years, that I've ever been on the drag strip.
Oh, that's awesome.
The first time was in Lakeland. It turned an 840 at like 101 miles an hour. And of course, Lakeland closed down, so that's. And I understand from I think John Lowers had mentioned that somebody is building a strip. We're going to build a strip in Zephyr Hills. Oh. I don't know where it's at, but that's.
I haven't heard it either.
That will be something.
We'll keep our eyes open for that one.
Oh yeah.
Which one you want to start with?
This is a 1964 GTO that I had. I was 22 years old at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base out of Dayton, Ohio. It had a 389 tri-power, 4-speed, 411 gears, Krager 5-spoke mags, and
look at you!
A friend of mine, he was a Chevy guy. His mom and dad had rented a cottage in Ocean City, Maryland. He says, it'd be nice to go there in a Corvette, Jack. What does Jack do? I go down there and I buy this 65 Corvette. And
let's see if I can get the glare off of
this.
This is going to be hard.
That was a 327 4-speed. And then again, now this is kind of different stages. This is my 67 Camaro, back when it's down the heights and primed it in black. I think I had a little 309 cubic inch in that.
There's the Malibu.
There's the Malibu, and that's the engine. Oops. And that's one of the first exhaust systems that we put on the Camaro. That's why there's like a 3-inch hole in the side Because I used to.
And then this over here is the engine.
That's the engine that's in the Impala now.
Okay. Okay. So what is this we're looking at, Jack?
We're looking at again. This is my first '67 Camaro. This was probably about 84, 85 when I was up in Missouri. That's how it looked. It was painted white. The only difference is somebody had run into my driver's door. That's why the stripe doesn't continue.
So that's the same car.
This is the same car as
that.
my yes.
Okay.
And then this picture here is of the same 409 that is in my 60
That's
Chevy.
In this one now. That way everybody can follow along what's going on here.
I did install the fenders, and again I was able to drive it on the street. At that time it had an automatic in it, and
very nice. Thank you, Jack, so much for sharing your cars with us.
Welcome,